I'm Majuga, the new Assistant Superintendent of Business Services. Long title, I haven't gotten used to it yet. 2 weeks, I've been here for quite a while, but Billy retired a couple of weeks ago, and I was appointed to the position. And so this is one of my first meetings, but of course, you okay with me taking this off?
At least for a little bit.
With a lot of experience with the half-cent sales tax. I was actually here when it passed, and I was actually on some of the committees that passed it, so I am familiar with the sales tax quite a bit. So the first item on the agenda is, well, I'd like everybody to introduce themselves and tell us which organization they represent. You can start with
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Juanita Hall. I'm the president of Apple.
I'm Deborah Thrower, the vice president of Apple.
I'm Philip Rowland.
Julia Reed, President, Lafayette Parish Association of Educators.
John Bouton, Director of Employee Services, Lafayette Parish School System. Andre Bro with one Acadiana.
Toby Dasbeck, University of Louisiana, Lafayette.
So we'll go ahead and the first item is a review of the fiscal 2002 sales tax fund financials for fiscal year ended June 30th, 2021. And as you can see, we had a revenue of $30,265,254. The expenditures included teacher raises of $17,516,957. We didn't have any instructional counseling expenditures. Professional development, we spent $523,903. Lower class size, $2,710,343. Tutoring and extra instruction, $724,748. The excess reserve distribution, which is the distribution we made last year during COVID, that was approved by the board, was a little $5,283,848, which led us with total expenditures of $26,759,799, which left an excess revenue over expenditures of $3,505,455. We had a beginning operational fund balance reserve of $16,036,353, and that you add that to the excess revenues over expenditures, you come out with an ending projected operational fund balance of $19,541,808. And of course, these are unaudited numbers, but we're pretty comfortable with them. If they change, it shouldn't be material, and any change would come out of next year's distribution. I'd like to say this was a year of historical sales tax collections. If you look over the history, and I just kind of pulled the history of the sales tax collections, we have been historically over the previous year since October, and especially large increases in April, May, and June. I'd like to think this would continue, but if you know the reason behind those spikes is you had an incredible amount of stimulus put into the economy. You had stimulus checks going out to lots of people. You had unemployment, very high unemployment checks going out to lots of people. And then you sequestered those people from leaving. So in essence, not only did they get the money, but they couldn't travel. So most of it was probably spent in the community. Hence the record sales tax receipts we have received over the past 6 months, 7 months, especially in the months of April, May, and June. We have seen that continue a little bit into the fiscal quarter. It's kind of mitigating a bit. So if this will continue or not, I would think not. And I would ask for conservatively, to not just assume this is going to go on forever, but to appreciate that we did have it. And it wasn't the opposite, which could have been the case. Without this stimulus, we could have seen direct opposite of this. So I think we ended up in pretty good shape over the end of the year. And any questions on that line item? Seeing none, that was just that was just information, so that doesn't require any kind of vote. The next item is the recommendation for declaration of excess distribution. And if you open that attachment, what we did, and based on history and based on some of the discussion that happened on the board floor last year, we have separated it with some options, all the way from no raise, which we take the entire distribution and distribute it into one check, and that check would be an estimate of $2,949.72, which you could see is a historically high amount. The highest we've had was in 2013 when we distributed $2,281. So if that were the case, that would be the highest ever. If you decide to put a $250 salary increase into the actual salary schedule, that would lower the amount to $24,64.67. The same thing for 500, 750, and 1,000 as an offsetting decrease. For 500, we come out with a distribution of $1,979.62. A permanent salary increase of 750 would result in a one-time check of $1,494.57. A $1,000 increase would put you right over $1,000 at $1,009.51. So that's just some of the options we ran out. As you know, when we give a salary increase, we put a year of that ahead into the reserve fund in case we run into problems, because if it goes into the salary increase, we cannot take it away once it goes into the salary system. I'd like to say some misconceptions in the past is that no matter how this is paid, it is part of your retirement. Regardless if it's paid in one check or it's paid in your annual salary, it is subject to retirement and part of your retirement. So regardless of how it's paid, it is in your retirement. So that's been some confusion. People think because it's a one-time check, it does not get included in retirement. It does. So just to clarify the error on that one, that's just some FAQ misconception that has come back over time to say that, oh, we wanted a permanent salary increase, so it can include our retirement. It's included in your retirement.
But if it's the whole check or whatever, it's just included, it's just gonna be a one-time payment toward your retirement, is that correct?
For that year, yes.
Okay,
So whatever you paid that year, that's the amount for your retirement that year. So regardless if it's paid over time, over 12 checks or over one check, if it was all in one check or in 12 checks, you pay retirement either way and you get credit either way.
And the benefit of having it put on your salary is it's permanently part of that salary, so the next year your salary will start at that level.
Is it?
And if it's not added, then it's just a one-time payment.
minute.
It's a one-time thing, I mean, yes, but it collects, it accumulates because it doesn't become part of once you pass a permanent increase, it becomes part of the teacher raise line item, which gets bigger, which reduces future one-time payments. It's all, just a matter of balance.
Your retirement is calculated off of the average of your last,
Your highest 3
The
years.
highest 3 years, the highest 3 years.
okay, so if you don't, if you don't get the raise, then it would maybe be as high as it would be, because if we suffer a sales tax setback, it might mean that your lower years are lower then, right? So it could affect your retirement in that way.
Still ways.
It could, so if we would issue the whole $29.49, you retire the next year, that
Yeah.
$29.49 goes in your calculation rather than the $1,000.
Yeah.
Right.
So you would have a higher, for somebody who's retiring
Right.
next year or something, they would have a higher calculation based upon if it was put into the salary.
Correct.
Quick question for you, Matt. On the residual of 8.741808, I see that the reserve was reduced to 80%, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Is this the first year that has come into effect, or was that in effect last year when we had the excess distribution?
The board, I believe, reduced that, what was it, last year?
Last year.
They reduced it last year from 100% to 80% per board action.
Okay.
So that was a one-time thing. So that in essence
Freed up some money.
freed up a little bit of money for that one-time distribution, but that was one-time distribution.
Right,
So
I
that's-
understand.
that money's gone.
I remember from the board meeting from last year, that, the board was considering not the distribution, the big check, they were considering putting money into the salary.
Correct. So what
Into
happened?
the salary and then having the teachers have a little,
Right.
maybe I guess, with that was their consideration.
So I think the previous year, the board had requested that we look at putting something in the salary every 5 years. So 5 years would have been 2020. So we met, we decided to put an amount into the salary schedule of $500, I believe it was $500. And I think the feedback that y'all had gotten from your organization was that's what they wanted to do. But that was not the feedback the board got from phone calls. And I believe due to the COVID
And Laura.
Yes.
and Laura and the issues with not knowing how this would affect future sales taxes, they made a decision to not put anything in the raise in 2020 and to do a bigger distribution. So that in light, I'm bringing back some other raise options this year based on the comments they made last year. So in essence, that's why I'm presenting different scenarios for the community. And then I'm assuming as soon as it's approved tonight, they're going to start getting phone calls either way. So,
Yeah.
Can I
that's
ask,
what we can't control.
can I ask you some follow-up questions? Or do all the
Sure.
questions have to go to you? Okay, so you're in the, what's it called now?
Employee service.
Employee services. So y'all do, recruiting is in your office?
Yes.
So in your opinion, do you think it would be, what would be easier to recruit on, to fill our teacher spots? Would it be the $500 in a salary or a one-time disbursement that's not guaranteed? Like, what do you think would help our profession?
I think salary-wise, it's always good when you can say we have the highest salary.
Right, that's kind of like what I'm thinking, is that,
But I know that we do have a recruiter, that's not her official title, she's
Right.
our equity and talent coordinator. But when she speaks to people to get them to come in, she often mentions this is the salary, but we also have these incentives that happen, and she always mentions the tax check. So either way it goes, we use it as a tool. If it's part of the salary and it makes us the highest in Acadiana, then great, we will shout that from the roof.
because I know Iberia is edging us out right now, aren't they?
Right.
Yes.
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 And I get a lot of member phone calls saying I'm going to Iberia Parish.
Yes.
And I know
And that-
And yes.
Yeah. So it would benefit us
Right.
as a system to get people in and to keep people
Right.
if
Yes.
it is in the salary
Yes.
schedule.
Yes.
However, we also use that idea of, hey, you can get you almost a
Right.
$2,000 check or something right before Christmas. A lot of people like that too.
Right.
So,
I did an informal survey, about 66 teachers responded. This was just a couple of schools. It was almost 50-50 split as far as they want a full check or they want to see some of the salary. 30 responded full check, and the rest responded some combination of salary and a check.
Yes.
That's how the survey, we send the surveys out. It's usually a slight edge on raises over in the check.
Yes. The same thing with that. There's the same thing they wanted to have, they want the increase with the little check, with something to get.
I would say the thing when the extra check drops below 4 digits, that's when they start to grumble a lot more. Is when so if you can give a raise and there's still 4 digits, which all these options have, that generally makes people pretty happy.
Yes.
Sometimes.
Sometimes, but
But most people.
most people, most.
You can't make
Nothing's everything always.
Right.
So if you look at the history, so what I've attached on the second page is the historical reserve payments to teachers. So the last 2 years, you had a 1,900, then an 1,800. So if you wanted to keep it in that same realm, you'd be probably at the $500 increase, so at 1,979, which is, I believe, what was recommended last year was a $500 increase. I was just pointing that out from a historical perspective. That would keep you about where you were the last 2 years, plus a little more, and then a $500 permanent increase. So just FYI.
I also had some, we also need to think about that we had situations going on last year that.
I'm sorry, can you speak up?
I said, I feel like last year we had some situations going on that made people think they really needed the money to check. And I think more of them this year would feel comfortable as long as that extra check is the 4 digits, that they would like to see some extra going to salary.
And when will the raise go into effect?
Would it be,
It would more than likely be prorated.
yeah, okay,
After the board.
So, but like, if they would see a little jump, like starting in what month?
I would,
Prorated at something, right?
Assuming we have the time to do it, let's assume the board approves it in October,
Uh-huh.
then more than likely, perhaps November, they would start at that point.
Perhaps
So
in November. So they would see their salary go up this year.
But, okay, that was one of the things I had a question about. I'm not sure why I thought you said fiscal year 2022.
Prorated for 11 months.
Yes, we prorated for 11 months.
Okay, prorated fiscal year 2022. But if we do a salary increase, we are looking at it starting this year, like I said, November or something along those lines.
So 11 months, the first payroll for teachers of the new fiscal year is September.
Okay,
So you would get it October through the rest of the year.
okay, so that it would be effective this year. I had several teachers that were concerned about that.
Yes.
Thinking they wouldn't see it until next year.
No, this year. And I think historically, that's how it's been done.
That's what I thought. I didn't think we waited a year except for maybe the first time we passed it.
The first time we passed it, only because I was here on that old, was we gave 7.5 and then the second
Yeah.
7.5 because it was literally having to collect the money to be able to pay it out, and then we had to create the reserve also. So any discussion on the options?
Do we know what it would take to pass up Iberia with a starting salary?
I'm not sure. You know? You know?
I just remember it was more than ours, but, I mean, I feel sad, and I stopped looking at it.
Yeah, I'm just curious.
I don't think we're
If we
too
could
far
do both.
behind them.
I wouldn't think so. Does Iberia have a supplemental payment? I know St. Martin has 4.
Would they
St. Martin
just,
does one every quarter, I understand. So there's a lot of districts, from what I understand, have supplemental tax payments, but they may be on different levels. I believe St. Martin Parish is every quarter. Does Iberia have anything supplemental?
I think they do, but they budget out, I don't know, it's weird, because like they budget their check over 14 checks or something like that, like they get an extra check twice a year or something.
That's interesting.
Oh, that's what one of the teachers, now that's from another teacher, so that doesn't necessarily mean it's true.
She may work overtime on it. She may have a supplemental, but she may do some tutoring.
Garnished out of their normal,
Right, yeah, I think it's,
it's not
yeah,
on top of their salary,
right. So,
part of their salary, so it's garnished.
I'm looking at the $1,000 salary increase and looking at the reserve funding for that. We reduced the reserve funding from 100% to 80% for the fiscal year 10, fiscal year 15. And what I see here is like a full reserve for $3 million for if we went to 1,000. Is there any reason that cannot be reduced to 2.4 million instead of 3 million as well?
The other 2 reductions were per board action, so that's why they're there. You know, we reserve a full 100%. I mean, that's what's in the 6 million on the top. So our normal procedure would be to reserve 100% for no other reason. Not that we don't have the authority, but that was something the board made as a specific action to reduce those 2 years. So we felt it was financially conservative, especially because of the historically high sales tax numbers that we go with 100%. Because my concern is that when this does turn around, it turns around drastically. Hopefully not, but I'm still concerned about that. I don't want us to get lured into a sense of false reality with some of these numbers, because I really don't think they're sustainable.
Maybe you said, how long would it pay out the raises? A year? And is that at 0 sales tax or just reduced?
0. So it's a year's worth. $3 million would be an estimate what it would take to do another year of
So
that
we would
raise.
collect, for a year, collecting 0 sales tax.
Correct.
Like, I mean, that seems like a pretty unlikely situation.
A 0 increase. So we would still
Okay,
have to
0.
fund.
Okay,
We
okay.
still have to fund we'd have to fund the whole thing, the whole 17.5 million.
Okay.
So this would be on top of that. So it wouldn't be a 0 sales tax, it would
Okay.
be 0 over the previous year for the distribution.
Wait, I'm not following the numbers and I'm not. You would have to have a 20 to 30% reduction in sales tax for 5+ years to wipe out the reserve as it's currently funded. And it kind of bothers me that we're willing to do 80% funding for the previous raises, but this raise we want to do 100% funding. I just think that this money that's being pulled off the table that I think could be put back on the table for the teachers.
I agree. I think 80% is a healthy reserve. Is it possible to propose for board action that we propose an 80% reserve for the increase as well this year?
Yeah, I mean, that's something you could request the board to do. We should tell our staff that is something that we would propose because the reserve is 100%. That's, the board purposely made an action on those two, but they didn't reverse the original.
Right. I know the last year we had a discussion about that, about reducing the reserve funding. And I think Mike Hefner was here at that meeting. As it stands now, personally, I'm extremely comfortable with a $500 salary increase. I'm not going to go against if we do a $1,000 salary increase. I think I got 17 respondents that want a smaller salary increase below 1,000, and I got 15 I got 19 that want a smaller salary increase below 1,000, and I got 15 that want a $1,000 salary increase. And like I said, I got 30 that just want the full check. So 500 is kind of like a nice compromise on what I'm seeing with the people, but I'm not a objection to whatever the consensus is.
So if you all, if I may, Dr. Asper asked about how close we were to Iberia. So this is off of the information we had when we put together the Pathway to an A document in early summer. So this based on those numbers. So Lafayette was at 42,427. Right above us was Jeff Davis at 42,453. 2 steps above us was St. Martin at 42,805. Terrebonne, 42,909. Iberia, 43,636.
Wow.
Yeah, see, they're 43.
And then Calcasieu at 44,306.
Wow. If we had 1,000, we'd still be trailing Iberia.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
That's fine. But it wouldn't be as bad.
Wouldn't be as
Yeah,
bad.
It would be
it would
only
be
for-
very high. You know, okay, but the 750 would be,
So, yeah,
the
that
750 would be. but the
I did think
750
this
would be-
morning, thinking ahead of this meeting, I thought, just think what our salary would look like if every few years we had put a little bit of this check toward. I mean, we'd be meeting the.
Right, yeah, it would be a big, yes, it would, a big change, big difference. Yes.
So that's my 2 bits. Thank y'all for letting me.
But thank you for that.
Sure.
I mean, that would put us ahead of, 1,000 would put us ahead of St. Martin, wouldn't it? No, how much would put us ahead of St. Martin? Like, even I think $500 would put us ahead of St. Martin.
Yeah, 500.
So then we'd only be
750
trailing
would be even
Iberia.
And that wouldn't include, if Iberia doesn't have a supplemental payment, you're actually paying.
Right.
Because if they're only pure salary, if we have a salary plus supplement, you're still paying, you're still making.
That's
more
true. Total compensation.
Right.
Total
Yes.
compensation. But you're getting one big check for Christmas. But one teacher told me, she said this weekend, she says, I need my subfloor redone, I need a big one-time check. So I'll pass that on to the committee, thank you.
Tell her we sorry. Tell her we sorry.
She could put $50 aside in it.
Tell her to take it
She remained English, so I was like, So, Philip, you're proposing a $500 increase with a reduction to 80%. Now that's going to increase this. We have to recalculate it, but do we know what that means? We
We'll just recalculate it.
just recalculated. It'll be maybe a couple hundred more. I'm not sure how the math will work out. It'll be slightly more than 2,000. That's something that you'd like to propose so we can move forward for discussion?
At 500?
It's
I'll go ahead and make that motion as
500
stated.
at the 80%?
It's 500 at the 80%.
500, and then also requesting an 80% funding percentage
It's the 100.
instead of 100.
That puts you over 2,000, we'd have to do
What
that.
will it be,
Put you over 2,000.
So what kind of raise? would they
what kind of
get?
raise is?
The raise would be 500.
500.
So how do y'all feel about the 750? What do y'all think about the 750?
Okay, so let's do it, so
Okay,
is that
let's
a
do it.
motion, Phil? No.
I'm right in the middle and trying to go along with what everybody's saying here and what the teachers are requesting.
It's about 280. 280.
I make a motion that we increase the salary to $750 and the remaining dispersed as the extra check in October. Also would like to add on to that motion a request to reduce the reserve funding to an 80% level.
For fiscal '22. Okay, so, is there a second?
I'll second.
Discussion?
Great idea.
I think it's good, like, it's almost $1,500 a year, kids.
So, do you want a quick calculation, Anthony?
1646.
My only concern is, I don't have the surveys, I just have informal people talking to me about, to remind us that we're still dealing with the impact of COVID and that the more money we can put in their hands now, the better. So it seemed like your data was, you had how many that said?
It's right at 50-50, a little bit more wanting a little salary increase than the one full check.
Check, yeah.
But there's a counterpoint. If we get the check in their hands, and I brought this up last year, that money that goes into the teacher's hands in October gets spent here in this parish, which further increases the sales tax.
And that's what we have to look at. That's what we have to look
So,
at.
You know.
so does the raise, though.
Yes.
Over
But the
a
raise-
sustainable,
oh, it
over a
does.
sustainable time period. I
But
can
it's-
spend, that's an extra time I can go out to eat every month for the
Well,
next,
that's what it is,
For the
$50 a
next
month
20
is what it amounts
for
to.
the next 20 years. That's me and my husband going on a date every month, you know? So, I mean, that's gonna also be stimulating the economy
To economy.
in a more sustainable form, I think. You know, rather than just juicing it right now and then then it just subsides. I mean, we're already still seeing a lot, parents are getting those $600 checks ahead from the credit, from the child tax credit, so we still are probably seeing a lot of that. I don't know that it would make that big of a difference to dump that on top of all that money that's still floating around.
My
you know?
question is, recruitment effort or retention? Because the teachers I'm hearing from, the retention, they're saying, give us more money now, it'll make us a lot happier.
Well, it's really honestly, it's split. Like,
Yes.
when we pull our
Yes.
organization, it comes out about usually between 52 to 55% in favor of a raise plus something. Now, like I said, the people generally are happy so long as that excess distribution number is 1, 2, 3,
It's
4 digits.
four digits,
Like, they feel
okay.
happy because that's a reasonable Christmas
And
budget.
this year we can do that.
Yes, and we can, yeah, we can do it.
Yeah, and I think in a year and it's a healthy distribution too, like $1,500.
Yes,
That's a pretty good, it's 4 digits and then half that over, you know, I think that's a pretty decent compromise to still get them the money they need now while still securing new teachers.
I'm just thinking anything less than what we had last year is gonna be a concern for new teachers. I think
How
about
much
the
was
younger
last year?
teachers.
Last year was like 1,900, I believe.
1,900.
Okay, but then they need to go look and see what it's been in the past.
But if you know,
Like,
if they look
it's
at 2,000, if you look at 2,000,
Listen,
that's how beautiful.
I know it's hard when you're young, but you know, like, that you want that money now.
But,
Like,
But in
I
the
know,
end, if
they have
you-
student loan, and they have
Yeah.
student loans and stuff, you know, that,
I mean, the shift we're seeing is
Yeah.
I'm not seeing people planning long range.
Right.
I hate to say, it. That's what my
Right.
question
No,
is.
yeah.
Are we using it to recruit new teachers in that maybe will stay with us longer?
Right.
We're trying to keep some of the folks that we have now.
I mean, I think having, when they're picking somewhere to work, like the people that are here are probably gonna stay. You know, we need to keep people in the door. You know, like that's the problem. How many people are enrolled? It's like, how's your enrollment at UL? Is it going up or down?
You don't want to ask that. It's at historically low level.
Right. So, I personally think a salary, I'm going to say a salary is more likely to get somebody in the door than a maybe distribution. Like sometimes we get, like, I remember my first year, I had no idea until somebody cut until that check cleared my account in October that I was getting an excess check. You know, so a lot of them are not even aware of it when they first come in, unless an older teacher tells them, you know.
But Tobio, Ms. Hall has, Debbie and I have felt the other dates, you know, when it was $475 and when it was, you know, when it was low. And that was a downer right there, you know, Ms. Mouton too understands that that was a downer, you know. So to see this fund grow, because this is what the voters and the taxpayers, we the taxpayers too, you know, wanted for us, you know, for educators in this parish to get this, to have an increase, to know that that salary is going up. We're going to have that as not only as a recruitment tool, but just to encourage our teachers to let them know you're valuable.
Right.
Above these digits still, but you are valuable. You mean much to us. You affect our children, you know. So it's important.
And I do want to point out too that $750 is not a huge amount, but the teachers did just receive $800.
Yes, so it'd be about 50.
So when you put that $750 with that $800, that's $1,500. That's something
Right.
that people can see.
It's either check.
You can see that.
Right, yes, they go see it, yes, yes.
So further discussion on Phil's motion of $750, reducing the fiscal year 22 reserve to 80%, which we estimate will probably bring it closer to 1,600. Don't quote me on that, but we'll do the math.
Okay.
Somewhere in that neighborhood.
1640.
The 16 for the excess,
The 1497 becomes around 1,600.
about 1,600.
Probably a little more, but I don't want to overpromise until we
Right.
plug in the numbers.
You also said historically every 5 years we've looked at rates,
have
and
had-
nothing happened last year.
We had an increase in 10, we had an increase in 15, and the intention was to look at an increase every 5 years. Last year, the committee recommended a $500 increase and a distribution, and it got to the board, and the overwhelming calls to the board were what you were hearing, is that we want the big check. And the board voted to issue the big check, with the caveat that they would like to look at it again this year, which is why these are being presented.
That's gonna be the same thing. There's gonna be overwhelming calls that are gonna want
Yes,
the
they're gonna
full
want
check.
Right. I
The
know they're
people
gonna,
on the salary are not gonna call in, the people on the check.
and the board needs to make that, really make it, they need to stick to what they said they were gonna do last year. Like they said they were going to, you know, consider putting it, you know, giving them, having a little check to give to them. You know, it's not a little check, but to put something into put something in the salaries. I do remember that, you know, putting it in the salaries, because they saw the need for that, you know.
Well, I know I'll be there to speak in favor of it. You coming?
I'm coming.
Okay.
I'm riding. Nothing
Our
happened.
council says
Nothing
American
happened.
other
I'm riding.
teachers.
You want to substitute motion?
No. I'm gonna try and look to the parents
You
and
have to
other
sit next to
teachers
each
as
other and
best I
hold
can.
hands and go up there together. And they're gonna look and say, oh, we in trouble. Ladies coming, yes, we coming, yeah.
So any more discussion on Phil's motion? Phil, are you in support of your own motion still?
Is that a legitimate question? Question.
Okay, so if we'd like to call the question and to restate it, would you like to restate your motion?
I'd like to propose a $750 salary increase with the excess funding from the sales tax, with the remainder being distributed as a check in October. And also amending the reserve for this salary increase to an 80% level in the same standing as previous increases have been amended.
Motion on the floor, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. You get a gavel. So that being the last thing, the next one is a motion to adjourn. Bill,
Motion to adjourn.
second.
Second.
Adjourn.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, young man. Thank you, young man.
That was hard.